The truth can be a cold revelation, striking like ice when you least expect it to appear. We peel back the layers of deception to show you the world as it really is, without filters. Subscribe today for the most honest stories on the web.
The notification came at 11:47 on a Tuesday night. Not a call, not a voicemail. A text from a number I didn't recognize. 3 words and a link. Check your credit. I almost ignored it. I had a deposition prep at 7 the next morning and my phone had been buzzing with nonsense all day, but something made me tap the link. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the fact that my hands had been restless all evening. The same nervous energy I get right before a case breaks open in ways no one anticipated. The link led to a credit monitoring service. I logged in with my existing account, one my firm had set up for all junior associates after a data breach 2 years ago. The page loaded. My credit score had dropped 41 points in the last 72 hours. I scrolled down. There it was, listed under new accounts opened, a business line of credit. $280,000, issued 3 days ago, guaranteed by one Maya Elise Thornton. My name. My hands weren't shaking. That surprised me, actually. They were completely still, flat on the kitchen counter, while something cold and surgical moved through my chest and replaced everything soft. I'm a corporate attorney. I work with contracts, liens, liability clauses, and personal guarantees every single day. I know exactly what a $280,000 business line of credit tied to your name can do if the borrower defaults. It doesn't just sting. It follows you. It attaches to your assets, your license, your professional standing. The state bar takes financial misconduct seriously, even when you're the victim. I went to the sink and poured the rest of my coffee down the drain. I wasn't going to sleep anyway. Have you ever felt the exact moment you stopped being someone's daughter and became someone's resource? I'd like to know in the comments because I think more people have felt that moment than will ever admit it. I sat down at my desk and started building a timeline. That's what lawyers do. We don't cry first, we document. 6 months ago, my mother, Diane, had called me about the family bakery. Not the warm kind of call where a mother updates a daughter on her life. It was a business call disguised as a personal one, which was the only kind of call Diane ever made. She needed a bridge loan to cover a gap between a catering contract and the payout. She framed it as temporary, 2 months, maybe 3. The number she mentioned was $30,000. I had wired it without blinking. I told myself it was an investment in something I loved, because I did love that bakery once. I loved it the way you love something before you understand how much it costs you. 4 months ago, my younger sister Priya had texted me about her wellness studio. She was expanding, she said, adding a second location in Scottsdale. She just needed someone to co-sign while her business credit was still building. I'd said yes because Diane had asked me to, because saying no to Priya had always somehow become a conversation about what kind of person I was, what kind of sister. 3 months ago, Diane had asked me to put my name on a commercial lease for a new bakery commissary space. Just to get better terms on the rate, she'd said. Just on paper, you won't even know you signed it. I stared at my timeline. 3 transactions, 3 requests, each one framed as minor, temporary, just paperwork. And now a $280,000 line of credit I had never authorized, never seen, never signed, except apparently, according to the lender, I had. I called my colleague and closest friend Renata at midnight. She's not the kind of attorney you call for a friendly chat. She runs a boutique firm specializing in financial fraud and civil litigation, and when she answered, she didn't say hello. She said, "How bad?" "I don't know yet," I said. "That's what scares me." I walked her through it. She was quiet the whole time, typing. When I finished, she said, "Send me everything. The credit report, the account number, the lender name. I'll have someone pull the actual loan documents before 8 tomorrow." "Renata?" I said. "I think it's my mother." There was a pause. "I know," she said. "Send me everything." I didn't sleep. I built the case file instead. I named the folder Paper Trail and dragged every document I could find into it. Bank confirmations of the $30,000 wire, the cosign agreement for Priya's studio, the lease addendum for the commissary space, screenshots of every text where Diane had made a request, every voicemail where she'd framed my financial assistance as family obligation. There was a particular text from 8 months ago that I had forgotten about until I found it scrolling back through the chain. Diane had written, "You're the one with the degree and the salary. Priya and I are building something real. You should want to be part of it. It's your name, too. I screenshot it and dragged it into the folder. I had been so proud to give them that. My name. My professional credibility. The thing I had worked for through 3 years of undergraduate, 3 years of law school, 2 years of associate grunt work, and a bar exam I had taken twice, because the first time I had been sitting in a hospital waiting room while Diane had elective surgery and I couldn't concentrate. I had given them access to the most valuable thing I owned, and they had used it like a tool that belonged to them. I wasn't the daughter they'd raised. I was the instrument they'd sharpened. Renata called me at 7:52 the next morning, before I had even left my apartment. "Maya," she said, and her voice had shifted into something I recognized from the times she'd called me to consult on particularly bad cases. Measured, careful, like she was managing how much weight to drop at once. "The loan documents arrived 20 minutes ago. The signature is a forgery, but it's a good one. Someone had access to your actual signature and used it as a template." My stomach dropped. "The co-sign agreement for the studio," I said. "Priya's. That's my guess, too. But there's something else." She paused. "The business entity that took out the line of credit isn't the bakery. It's a separate LLC registered in Nevada 4 months ago. The registered agent is Priya, but the person who brokered the deal, the one who arranged the lender introduction and structured the guarantee, is listed in the correspondence as a D. Thornton. Diane. My mother." "What's the LLC for?" I asked. "Luxury event space," Renata said. They were trying to pivot the bakery brand into a venue business. Weddings, corporate events. There's a property in Paradise Valley they've been trying to acquire. The line of credit was supposed to fund the down payment. I sat on the edge of my bed. Outside the window, Phoenix was already blazing. The kind of flat white morning light that makes everything look overexposed. I thought about all the times I had visited that bakery as a child, standing on a step stool beside my mother while she taught me how to laminate croissant dough, back before she realized I was more useful to her as a financial instrument than a pastry student. "Renata," I said, "I want a full freeze. Every account that has my name anywhere near it. I want those forged documents into the hands of a forensic document examiner today, not tomorrow. And I want to know if this rises to criminal fraud." "It does," she said flatly. "The only question is whether we pursue it that direction." "Let's pursue everything," I said. "I want every option on the table." "Understood." A beat. "Maya, I'm sorry." "Don't be," I said. "I've been building this case for 3 months without knowing it." The credit freeze hit within hours. Renata's team moved fast. By that afternoon, the LLC's pending accounts were flagged, the lender had been notified of the disputed guarantee, and a forensic examiner had confirmed in writing that the signature on the loan document was, definitively, not mine. What came next was the silence. 26 hours of nothing. No call from Diane, no text from Priya, which told me everything, because the only way they could know to be silent was if they knew something had happened. You don't go quiet about nothing. Then Priya texted, "Mom says there's some kind of bank issue. You should call her. You're blowing this way out of proportion." I read it twice. Then I screenshot it and added it to the folder. 30 minutes later, Diane sent an email. The subject line was, "Family." The body was 4 paragraphs of controlled emotional manipulation, structured the way I had seen it my whole life. Opening with injury, "I can't believe you would do this to us." Pivoting to historical generosity. "Everything I have given you." Landing on guilt, "This is not how family handles things." And closing with demand, "Call me immediately so we can resolve this together." I read it the way I would read a contract from an opposing party. I identified the leverage points. I noted what she didn't say, which was more useful than what she did. She didn't deny it. She didn't claim ignorance. She called it a bank issue and a family matter, which meant she was already trying to contain it, to keep it from becoming what it legally already was. I forwarded it to Renata with one line, "No denial. Proceed." The part of the story I haven't told you yet is the part that changed everything. And it didn't come from my mother. It came from a phone call I received the next morning, from a number saved in my contacts under a name I almost hadn't recognized when I'd added it 2 years earlier. The name was Uncle Warren, Dad's brother. I hadn't spoken to Warren in almost 4 years. He had existed in my family's mythology as a cautionary figure. The brother who had tried to muscle in on the bakery in its early years. The one Diane referred to as a leech. The one Payan referred to as a leech. The one Priya had been warned never to speak to. As a child, I had absorbed this story without questioning it, the way children absorb whatever their primary caregiver chooses to feed them. Maya, he said when I answered. His voice was steady, careful. I know this is unexpected. I heard through a contact that there's been some financial activity under your name. I think we need to talk, and I think it needs to happen today. Who told you? I asked. A lender I know flagged it, he said. I've been watching your mother's financial behavior for a long time, not because I wanted to, because I had to. We met at a coffee shop near my office. Warren was in his late 50s, well-dressed, calm in the way of someone who had been through significant storms and learned not to be surprised by weather. He didn't look like a leech. He looked like a man who had been carrying something heavy for a very long time. He set a manila envelope on the table before he said a word. I want you to know, he said, that I have been waiting for you to be ready for this conversation. I tried once before, when you were 23. Diane got to you first. You stopped returning my calls. I understood. I'm not angry. He pushed the envelope toward me. Open it. Inside was a stack of documents, incorporation papers. The original filing for Thornton Family Bakery, LLC, dated over 20 years ago. 2 names on the founding documents, Diane Thornton and Warren Thornton. She told everyone I tried to steal from her, Warren said quietly. The truth is, I was the one who secured the original commercial space. I negotiated the first catering contracts. I did the accounting for the first 4 years. When your father became ill, I stepped back to help him. I wasn't in the building as much, and Diane used that absence to quietly file amended articles of incorporation, removing me as a co-founder and replacing my equity stake with a nominal buyout she forged my signature on. He let that land. The same technique, it turns out, she just used on you. I looked at the papers. The signature on the amendment labeled Warren Thornton looked nothing like the signature on the original documents. The loops were wrong. The pressure was wrong. Even without a forensic examiner, I could see it. Why didn't you fight it then? I asked. I did, he said. I hired an attorney. Diane got to my attorney's senior partner through a mutual contact on the city council, made certain allegations, and suddenly my attorney had a conflict and needed to withdraw. I was fighting alone, with no money, against someone who had cultivated exactly the right relationships in exactly the right places. He wrapped both hands around his coffee cup. So I stopped fighting that battle, and I started watching, and I started documenting. He reached over and turned to a specific page in the envelope. A spreadsheet, printed, covering years of transactions, every extraction, every financial favor Diane had called in, the $30,000 bridge loan to me, the cosign for Priya's studio, the commissary lease, all of it already cataloged, months before I had started my own folder. She needed your name because hers is almost used up, Warren said. Her credit is leveraged to the edge. Priya's studio is underwater. The bakery's catering revenue has been declining for 2 years. The Paradise Valley venue was a Hail Mary. She needed a clean name attached to it, and yours was the cleanest one she had access to. How long have you known about the line of credit? I asked. Since the day it was filed, he said. I have a contact at the lender. I sent that text to your credit monitoring account. I sat back. The coffee shop noise around us felt very far away. You waited, I said. You watched her do all of this to me for years. The $30,000, the cosign, the commissary lease. He didn't look away. I know, he said, and I will carry that. But Maya, every time I watched you write those checks, you handed them over willingly. If I had come to you at year 1, you would have called your mother, and she would have gotten ahead of it, and you would have lost the protection you didn't know you were building. I needed you to get angry enough to fight, and I needed you to do it on your own terms, not mine. He opened to another page in the envelope. I saw the words before he explained them. Thornton Family Trust, Founding Resolution. Clause 9, Integrity of Assets. When your father was still alive, Warren said, he and I set up a family trust together. Diane knows about it. What she has never known, because we made sure she never knew, is Clause 9. If any beneficiary of this trust is found to have engaged in fraudulent misrepresentation or forgery in a financial transaction involving another trust beneficiary, Their distributions are immediately and permanently revoked and redistributed to the injured party. I read the clause, then I read it again. Diane receives a quarterly distribution from this trust, Warren said. Has for 20 years. It's not a large amount, but it's consistent, and she's used it to fund the kind of community appearances she depends on. The charity board memberships, the event sponsorships, the persona. He closed the envelope. She didn't just hand you the tools to protect yourself, Maya. She handed me the clause activation I've been waiting 20 years to use. I didn't speak for a moment. The cold precision I had felt since Tuesday night had settled into something different, something that wasn't quite satisfaction and wasn't quite grief. It was clarity. What do we do first? I asked. You already started, he said. Renata is excellent. Let her finish the civil side. I'll engage my own counsel on the trust and the original co-founder fraud. The two cases running parallel will make it very difficult for Diane to manage both fronts at once. She's strategic, but she can't be strategic in two directions simultaneously. And Priya? I asked. Warren was quiet for a moment. Priya is not your mother, he said carefully. But she is not without responsibility. The LLC is in her name. She signed documents. Whether she understood the full picture or participated knowingly will come out in the process. That's not a conclusion to reach before the evidence is complete. He paused. But don't protect her before you know what she did. That was the hardest part. Harder than the forgery. Harder than the credit score. Harder even than understanding that my mother had treated my name like a commodity she owned. Priya was 2 years younger than me. I had helped her move into her first apartment. I had sat with her for 3 hours when her first business idea failed, telling her to try again. I wanted the evidence to show she hadn't known. I was afraid of what I'd do with it if it showed she had. The injunction filed by Renata's team froze the LLC's accounts within 48 hours. The lender had already been notified of the fraudulent guarantee. The forensic examiner's report was entered into the civil record. What followed were 4 days of the same cold silence, and then the inevitable. Diane arrived at my apartment building on a Saturday morning. I saw her on the lobby camera before the doorman buzzed me. She was wearing the blazer she wore for her charity board presentations. The structured cream one. The one that said community pillar. The one she treated as a costume for the role she'd been performing my entire life. Except her hair wasn't quite right, and she was standing in the lobby with her hands clasped too tightly in front of her. I went down. I didn't invite her up. We stood in the corner of the lobby near the mailboxes, and she looked at me with an expression I had seen her deploy at neighborhood association meetings and fundraiser galas, practiced warmth over controlled urgency. Maya, she said, this is so far past the point of reason. You have to talk to Renata. You have to tell her to stop this. We can fix this ourselves, the way a family fixes things. What would that look like? I asked. My voice was even, not cold, not hot. The voice I use in depositions. You withdraw the fraud claim, she said. You withdraw the fraud claim, she said. We renegotiate the loan terms. I get the line of credit redirected under the bakery's name, your signature gets amended off the guarantee, and we move on. You want me to help you restructure the loan you took out in my name without my knowledge, I said. It was for all of us, she said. And I heard the edge come into her voice the way it always did when the warmth wasn't working. You have a salary, Maya. You have a salary most people in this city would not believe. We're trying to build something that lasts, something your grandmother started, something your father loved, and you are willing to burn it down over a technicality because you want to feel righteous. It's not a technicality, I said. It's my signature. On a document I never signed. For $280,000 I never agreed to guarantee. It would have been fine, she said, clipped now, her composure starting to slip at the edges. The venue was going to generate enough revenue by Q3. You would never have even seen the default notice if you hadn't been monitoring your credit like some kind of... She stopped. Like some kind of what? I asked. She recalibrated. The warmth tried to come back. Like someone who doesn't trust her own family. I trust evidence, I said. Her face changed. The warmth left, and what was underneath was something I had caught glimpses of my whole life, but never seen fully. A tight, controlled fury that had always worn a more presentable face in front of me. You think you're so precise, she said quietly. You think because you have a law degree and a firm and a title that you are above how families actually work? You are not above it. You have benefited from this family your entire life. Every connection that got you your first internship. Every reference that got you past the first cut. Do you think that came from nowhere? I think it came from work, I said. It came from me, she said. It came from my name and my relationships, and 20 years of showing up to every function and every board and every committee in the city so that when my daughter needed a door opened, there was someone to open it. She stepped closer. You owe this family more than you will ever admit. I've been paying that debt since I was 22, I said. The $30,000, the cosign, the commissary lease, and now $280,000 in a forged signature. I let that sit for exactly 1 second. I think we're settled. She stared at me. For a moment, her face looked like something I hadn't expected, frightened. Not of me, of what was coming. And I understood then that she had known, on some level, that this moment existed as a possibility. She had just believed she could manage her way around it forever, the way she had managed around everything else, through relationships and appearances and the careful architecture of the story she told about herself. You need to stop this, she said. But the command in it had gone soft. No, I said. It was the first time I had ever said that word to her and meant it fully, without the asterisk of guilt that had always followed it. It sat in the air between us like something solid. I turned and walked back to the elevator. I didn't look back. I heard her call my name once. The elevator doors closed. The civil hearing was 3 weeks later. Renata presented the case with the particular calm efficiency that had made her someone people hired when they needed a situation handled rather than litigated. The forensic examiner's report, the loan documents side by side with my verified signature, the original LLC registration papers Warren had preserved for 2 decades, the bank records showing the historical pattern of extraction, the correspondence where Diane had referred to the Paradise Valley property as the family's next chapter, and emails she had sent from her personal account to the lender's broker, emails she had apparently believed were private. Priya's attorney tried to argue she had been a nominal participant, that she had signed documents without understanding their full implication. Renata's cross-examination took 11 minutes and produced 3 pieces of correspondence in which Priya had specifically asked the broker whether the guarantor's credit would take the hit or just the LLC's. The attorney sat back down. The judge was not theatrical about it. She didn't make a speech. She simply delivered the findings in the flat, efficient language of someone who had seen enough financial fraud cases to find this one unremarkable in its mechanics and remarkable only in its proximity. A mother and a daughter, a forged signature, a 20-year pattern. The line of credit guarantee was declared null and void as it pertained to me. The lender's claim was redirected to the LLC and to Diane personally. The forensic record of the forgery was referred to the state attorney's office for review of potential criminal charges. And separately, through Warren's parallel proceeding, Clause 9 of the Thornton Family Trust was formally activated. Diane's quarterly distributions were suspended pending resolution of the fraud finding. I watched my mother's face in the courtroom. She was sitting 2 tables away, and she did not look at me once during the reading of the findings. She looked at the table, and she looked, for the first time in my memory, like someone whose performance had run past its scheduled end. Priya looked at me. Once, briefly, just before they stood to leave. Her eyes were dry. That was the thing I noticed. She had known. Maybe not all of it. But enough. Warren met me outside the courthouse. He didn't say I told you so. He didn't say I told you so. He didn't gloat. He just handed me a folder and said, I had my attorney file the co-founder restatement this morning. It doesn't undo 20 years, but it corrects the record. He shook his head. Your father would have hated all of this. He was the one who always believed people chose better when they were given the chance. I think he gave Diane too many chances. He looked at me. I don't think you'll make the same mistake. 3 weeks after the hearing, I changed the locks on my financial life completely. New accounts, new credit monitoring, a legal memo from Renata to every financial institution that held anything in my name, documenting the fraud history and flagging any future application bearing my name for secondary verification. I removed myself from the commissary lease through the civil proceeding. I closed out the cosign arrangement on the studio through a separate motion. And then I sat in my apartment on a Sunday evening with the folder still open on my screen. And I did something I had been putting off. I found the original text from 8 months ago, the one where Diane had written, "You're the one with the degree and the salary. You should want to be part of it. It's your name too." I had believed her for so long. I had believed my name belonged to all of them, that my success was a shared asset, that my job was to keep pouring myself into a container that had no bottom. I had called it love. I had called it family. I had called it duty. I selected every document in the folder: the loan notices, the forged signature comparison, the bank statements, the court filings, the text messages, the email about being part of it. All of it. I moved it to an external drive, encrypted it, and labeled it with a date. Then I closed the folder on my screen and deleted the desktop copy. Not because the record wasn't important, because I didn't need to keep it where I could see it every day. I thought about what Warren had said, about my father believing people chose better when given the chance. I thought about whether I believed that. I didn't know yet about Priya. I was still building that answer out of evidence rather than hope. What I did know was this. For my entire adult life, I had treated my own name like something I owed to other people. Every time I signed it onto something of theirs, I was trying to buy the version of belonging that should have already been mine for free. It had never worked. You cannot purchase something that the other person was never actually offering. My name was mine. It always had been. I had just been the last one to understand that. People talk about cutting toxic family ties like it's a single clean action. One decision, one day done. It isn't. It's more like a long surgical procedure where the first cut just shows you how much there is to do, but the first cut is still necessary. It's the only way through. Have you ever had to choose yourself over the story someone else needed you to perform? Leave it in the comments. I think more people are standing at that first cut than anyone talks about. If this story felt like yours, share it with someone who needs permission to pick up the scalpel. And if it helped you feel even a little less alone in it, that's the only like button that actually matters.